Hi again guys, and welcome to episode 33 of D.A.R.C, or Does Anyone Really Care? The mini review series for Gran Turismo 6, where we're just doing a quick evaluation of certain cars which seem to be kind of underloved by the majority of GT6 players. Some of you guys may own these cars, some of you may even use them regularly and really like them. I know for me personally, some of these I do enjoy using them, but many of them I have owned or do own and don't really use as much as I could. So in this episode, as you can see, the car in question is the Alfa Romeo GT. It's a front-wheel drive sports coupe. Very good looking car in my opinion, and I know in many people's opinion it's a good looking car. But is it any good? Now, commonly on GT6, Alfa Romeos do seem to be overlooked for the most part. There are a couple of models which are very popular. The TZ3 is extremely popular, and the 155 touring car is pretty popular, but mainly for, as you'd expect, touring car racing. But the more mainstream Alfa Romeo models, you don't see people use all that much, really. Now, we've done an Alfa Romeo in this series before. We actually reviewed the Brera, which was, of course, an all-wheel drive sports coupe, and the Brera does have significantly more power, both stock and fully tuned, than this version of the Alfa Romeo sports lineup does. So, is this car worth your consideration? Well, the fact that it's front-wheel drive does make it a bit more of a specialist vehicle than the Brera is, because at the end of the day there are a fair amount of rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive sports cars to choose from, whereas genuinely good front-wheel drive sports cars with decent amounts of power are harder to come by. Now, there are some. We've featured some in the series before, such as the Hyundai Tiburon, but typically those cars don't have a very good image. They're not that great to look at, and they're not really the kind of car that you'd want to use unless you specifically need to. But the thing about this Alfa Romeo is it has the look, it has the coolness factor to match its usability and its performance. Now, it's priced pretty well. It's a 39,000 credit car, which is actually pretty cheap compared to some of the other Alfa Romeo models. And fully tuned, you're looking at a perhaps surprisingly high 523 pp. Now, the reason why I say that's surprising is because it's producing fully tuned 415 brake horsepower. So, for its power, the pp is quite high on this car. And it's also quite high considering that it's actually not as light as many of the other front-wheel drive coupes on the game. With the full weight loss package, it actually still weighs over 1100 kilos. It's 1103 to be exact, which isn't heavy. It's far from being heavy, but it is significantly heavier than some of the other front-wheel drive coupes. So why is the PP so high on this particular model? Well, the main reason is because although it is heavier than some of its rivals and has less power than some of its rivals, it is actually at least as good as many of them, if not, in certain ways, better. Now, any of you guys who have watched some of the front-wheel drive episodes of this series will know, because I've mentioned before, that I am specifically not a fan of front-wheel drive cars. I don't like the understeer, I don't like the torque steer, and I don't like the rampant wheel spin. And the trouble with front-wheel drive cars is you just cannot have extreme amounts of power from a front-wheel drive car and expect it to keep up with a rear-wheel drive car around the track. It's just not feasible. With this Alfa Romeo though, it still wouldn't be able to accomplish what I just said if it did have, say, 600 or 700 horses to deal with, but it doesn't. It only has 415 to cope with, and that actually feels perfect for this car. Now, of course, you can get the wheels to spin up, and if you enter a corner too fast, you can feel a bit of understeer. But to be fair, you can feel that with any car. At the end of the day, all-wheel drive cars understeer, and so do many rear-wheel drive cars. So that isn't really a bad point against the car, it's just a fact about it. And overall, I have to say, for a front-wheel drive car, and especially a front-wheel drive car that isn't all that lightweight, it does handle extremely well. And not only does it handle well, because it's more than just handling well that makes a car truly drivable. It's how easily it is, or how easy I should say it is to drive, and also how fun it is to drive, because many cars can accomplish a fast lap, but they're not necessarily cars you'd want to own. For me, I would include the Nissan GT-R in that category. It's clinically very fast, but not a particularly exciting car. It's kind of emotionless. Whereas this car, being an Alfa Romeo, it's got lots of character, it's got lots of style, and it has a personality about it which really bleeds through to its handling. And although it's only a video game, you can really feel that with the car on the game. The brakes are also excellent, and overall, so's the straight line performance. The top speed is well over 200 miles per hour, it's actually over 210, and the acceleration is very good as well. Obviously off the line it will wheel spin, but the mid-range acceleration is very good, and overall it is a very, very good car to drive. And like we said, it's less than 40,000 credits. So if you haven't tried this car before, I definitely recommend doing so. And that's it for this episode, so I'll see you next time, and thanks for watching.